Good afternoon, family. How are you? Yes. Okay. There it is. Come on, sing with me. I am grateful, yes, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Yes, I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Yes, the love of God is here. And so it is. Good singing, everybody. Please be seated. Thank you so much.
Woo, thank you, Penelope. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. Hello. I'm Reverend Jean Bell. My pronouns are they, she, and her, and I want to welcome you all to the first Sunday of the month where we have a new theme, and it's not infinite possibilities. It is radically interconnected. Yes, and we are. We are so radically interconnected, and we're going to enjoy our day. It is so good to see you, and you do, too, look like twins, indeed. All right, I'm going to say the monthly affirmation, and I'm going to say it all the way through, and then I'm going to invite you to repeat it with me. Yes, there it is, radically interconnected. That is what we are. So, listen up. Today I recognize my radical interconnection with all of life. My liberation is tied to the liberation of all beings. I'm here to disrupt illusions of separation and be a living embodiment of unity and truth. I listen deeply, act boldly, love fearlessly, knowing that the power of the one moves through me, as me, and in me. Ah, that is beautiful. Thank you, Reverend David. All right, let us say that with one voice, shall we? Today I recognize my radical interconnection. I am here to disrupt illusions of separation and be a living embodiment of unity and truth. I listen deeply, act boldly, and love fearlessly, knowing that the power of the one moves through me, as me, and in me. And so it is, and so we are. Mally, welcome with the announcements.
Oh, thank you so much, all you handsome groundhogs. 6 more weeks. My name is Mally Lapitte. My pronouns are she and her, and I gladly serve here on the creative arts team at SLCA. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are so happy that you chose to spend your time with us. Please make yourself known in the online chat or in person in the lobby with one of our welcome team people. We have so many great opportunities to connect, grow, serve, and give here at SLCA. For more information about today's announcements and other opportunities, scan the QR code found on your monitor. Here we go. There are 5 of them. The first 2 sound very similar because they're on the same day, but they're not in the same room. Visioning is vital to the sustainability of SLCA. Join SLCA practitioner Nana next Sunday during our 5 o'clock hour as she leads our community in a vision for SLCA. This will take place every second Sunday, and we would love for you to join in. Reverend Jean is excited to announce a new opportunity to grow every second Sunday during our 5 o'clock hour. Join Reverend Jean and discover the basic ideas of the science of mind. If you don't know Reverend Jean, it's this beautiful woman right here. This is a perfect refresher class for members and is especially designed to help newcomers understand the basic principles of the science of mind and spirit philosophy. You will learn how to use these principles to enhance your personal well-being and live a more freeing and fulfilling life. Sounds great. Let's take a hike. February 8th, Saturday, 10 a.m. You can get to know people in your spiritual community while practicing or participating in a light hiking outing. We will meet at Peachtree Creek Greenway Park. Register today on slca.com for more details, but you can just show up too if you decide Saturday morning you're getting out of bed and going. I went last time, and it was so fun. I did get to know my fellow parishioners. It was nice. Register today to join Reverend Susan, this lovely lady, in Powering Your Decisions. Powering Your Decisions. This is a life-changing course that guides students on a journey of self-discovery to unlock their untapped potential and achieve better results with confidence and clarity in all aspects of life. This class begins February 12th. That's a Wednesday. So register today at newthoughtheducation.com or by talking with one of our staff after service. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to visiting with you in our fellowship hall for our potluck Sunday. And remember, you all belong.
With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me. With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me. As I open and allow, I know right here and now, I create a world where wonders never cease. With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me.
So let's just take a breath, go within, and connect. Connect with that inner being that tells you that you are loved, that there is joy and so much unity all present for you. And it is always easy to find because it is right within you. As I take in a breath, it always reminds me that what I call universal presence, that what I call universal God, it's many names that I refer to it, but it's all the one energy. And what it is that place within me that says that I am well. And it always speaks to me in that still, quiet voice. As I connect with it, joy, love, peace, harmony, all those things come flashing forward with me, reminding me that I'm always just a breath away from each of those things. And so, whenever we are in troubled times, return to the breath, return to the moment and say, I have it within me. That's comforting. That's comforting for me to know that I can always get to that moment, no matter where I am and what is going on. I'm so grateful to have that ability to tap into that one source. I'm so grateful for every being that has come together to help me understand that teaching, whether it was here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta or through some book or some word or some YouTube channel. I'm grateful to be connected to so many of the people in this room, as well as those out sharing from online. Because as I tap into that voice within, I'm connected to each and every one. And so I'm also so very grateful to just take a moment every day and be reminded that I'm in good hands. And so if we're all in agreement with this prayer, we're going to say together, and so it is.
With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me. With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me. As I open and allow, I know right here and now, I create a world where wonders never cease. With every prayer, I breathe the heart of God. I breathe the love of God through me.
Lighting the flames of faith. A call to service. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence which we call Spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We recognize the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We recognize the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous people, the way of the primal spirituality. We recognize the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We recognize the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We recognize the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We recognize the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We recognize the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We recognize the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We recognize the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. As we recognize the healing candle, please put silently in the light the name of anyone you wish to experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be with you today. I'm David Alexander, spiritual director here. My pronouns are he and his. I'm honored to be with you this afternoon. It is time for our tithes and offerings. This is our time of circulation and to participate in the divine flow that is always moving through us as a community. We're grateful for all of the individuals who participate in this on a monthly basis or even an occasional basis if that's what has moved you today. There are various ways to give. Their text to give phone number makes it really easy on your cell phone or our website or the QR code. You scan that with your phone and it takes you to the spot that knows exactly what to do in all of the technology behind it. If you're like me and you're a monthly pledger, then we invite you to just simply recognize the gift that you've already put into circulation and put into motion, and we're grateful for that. It takes all of us, including all of us watching online and on Facebook and YouTube today, whenever today is for you as you are watching, because it takes all of us to come together and build this community together and do this work together. I think now more than ever, acts of solidarity, acts of standing in agreement and in alignment with what we believe in, while the rest of the world is getting noisy about things that might sound contrary to what we believe in. I'll spell it out a little bit more clearly in the message if that wasn't clear to you. I think it's more important now than ever to put our faith behind what we believe and support it wholeheartedly. So I thank you for doing that this afternoon with us online and in person. And so together let us affirm with the gift that we are circulating today our affirmation. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Again, I'm so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed.
bring these gifts forward, and we just invite you to extend your heart, your hands, or your energy to these gifts as we bless them now. We receive them into the heart of this ministry, into the heart of all that we're doing and all that we're called to do. We know that this support makes it possible. It empowers the vision and the possibility that lives in this ministry, that reaches back out into each of our individual lives, online and in person, to do the work that we are called to do. And for that, I'm truly grateful and thankful. And so it is.
So we just spoke to our offering. I freely and joyfully give as I receive. Also, I freely and joyfully receive. There's a lot of things going on to keep us distracted from those moments. This song that I want to share with you is from the American mystic Stevie Wonder. Back in the day, he wrote some beautiful music, and he still does, and he composed this song. It knocks me off my feet. I see us in the park strolling the summer days of imaginings in my head and words from our hearts, only to reveal that moment with spirit in me. That's what I sing to. When you hear these words, lift your voices, sing along with me, and imagine you and God just having a good time. I see us in the park, strolling the summer days of imaginings in my head and words from our hearts, totally to the winds felt, even without being said. I don't want to bore you with my troubles, but there's something about your love that makes me weak, woo, and it knocks me off my feet. Amen. There's something about your love that makes me weak, and it knocks me off my feet. Let yourself get knocked off. Knocks me off my feet. I don't want to bore you with it. Oh, but I love you. I love you. I love you. I don't want to bore you with it. Oh, but I love you. I love you. I love you more and more. We lay beneath the stars under a lover's tree, seen through the eyes of my mind, and I reach out for the part of me that lives in you. Only our two hearts can find. I don't wanna bore you with my troubles, but there's something about your love, amen, that makes me weak, and it knocks me off my feet. There's something about your love that makes me weak, and it knocks me off my feet. It knocks me off my feet. I don't wanna bore you with it. Oh, but I love you. I love you. Love you. I don't wanna bore you with it. No, but I love you. Love you. I love you. I can only love you more. Only love you more. I can only love you more. Only love you more. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
That's good. Give her some more love, Penelope Williams. Well, good afternoon again. How y'all doing? How's your mom and them? You all right? It's February. It's Black History Month. It's still Black History Month. Can we just say that right there? We cannot cancel that which is. Amen? Amen. And we have this beautiful series, Radically Interconnected. The Science of My magazine, you haven't got it yet, cover looks like this for February. It says Radical Interconnection. I felt like that was a little bit heavy on the tongue, radical interconnection, so I changed it just a little bit to radically interconnected to make it a little bit more active. Tony told me, he said, that didn't help. It's still wordy. But the concept, we're gonna spend this month breaking that down, looking at that radical interconnection that we all have with spirit, with each other, with life. We tend to focus on the science idea of the science of mind. But the living of the science of mind is as much an art as it is a science. And the truth is that every moment we are creating, or as I often like to say, co-creating. And when we're co-creating, we're not creating in a vacuum. We're co-creating in a way that impacts everything else around us, everything that we are connected to, human and non-human, alive, past and present. Every moment we are weaving and we are woven into that greater tapestry of interbeing, what we call consciousness, that which we are invited to participate in the creation and the transformation of the world. And so it is kind of a radical concept and a radical idea of how interconnected we really are at the spiritual level, at the cellular level, at the most intricate level of our being and our consciousness. And so as we explore this month, and especially today as we launch it, if at any point you get uncomfortable, I just want to start by saying it's not my fault. I didn't put the title on the magazine, they did. Right? I'm going to go there with radical interconnection. So, I know some people, the word radical just, it can disturb you a little bit. It can knock you off your feet, right? It can do things to you. So breathe. We're going to get through it. We're going to break it down today, okay? Amen? The word radical comes from the Latin radix or root, right? It really means, so being radical really means getting to the root of something. The root cause, which is a phrase that Ernest Holmes used a lot. He didn't use the term radical a lot, but he used the term root cause or first cause as a way of describing the point at which and from which everything is created in our consciousness. And so when we look at this idea of what getting to addressing something at the deepest levels rather than treating it from surface symptoms, addressing something at the deepest level of our consciousness. Where does that really come from? Where is our practitioners are trained in the art and the science of mind is getting to the root cause. Where does that come from? I'm feeling uneasy, I'm feeling unworthy, I'm feeling unloved, I'm feeling not connected, I'm feeling disoriented, I'm feeling fear, whatever. What is the root cause of that? Where does that come from? Where is that belief embedded? I often use the metaphor of the princess and the pea. You remember the old story, right? And the princess is uncomfortable in her bed, and so she asks for a new mattress, and she gets a new mattress, and she's still uncomfortable in the bed, and I don't remember it all exactly, but you get it. And mattress after mattress, it keeps going, and it gets higher and higher and higher, but it never gets to the root cause. There was a pea underneath the mattress and the floor or the first layer or whatever it was that went all the way up. And so in the science of mind, we're talking about removing all the layers. You didn't know that was a metaphysical story, did you? That you were learning as a child. It's a metaphysical story. It's the science of mind. It's how do we peel back the layers of consciousness and get to what's at the root. Or how about this? In my childhood, we're going to find out where the Gen Xers are. And a few of us maybe. There was a album, a CD. Remember those? CD that came out. Kurt Franklin's God's property. Remember God's property? And the song Stomp, which is one of the songs that really kind of blasted him into the stratosphere of popularity in culture. And it was a powerful gospel song. The whole album is very powerful. In the beginning, and of course, Kirk Franklin never sings. He just talks over the choir doing their thing. But at the beginning of that song, he says, some of you think we've gotten too radical with our message. You think the gospel music has gone too far. And then he says, well, I've got news for you. You ain't heard nothing yet, right? And then the track breaks in. So I've had that song kind of in the back of my head every time I look at the word radical. Because as we really look at what is radical interconnection, it means recognizing and living from the truth that everything, every being, every system, every action, and every thought is deeply and inseparably linked at the most fundamental level. Radically interconnected, that garment of destiny that Dr. King talked about. And so that's what we're talking about when we say radical interconnection. We're talking about that thing that means every belief, every system, every thought is deeply and inseparably linked at the fundamental level. And so it brings us kind of to an interesting conclusion about our spiritual philosophy or tradition that we call the science of mind, religious science, new thought, however you want to refer to it, or simply, open and progressive spirituality. That this idea, this thing that you and I share together as we commune together in this space and choose to make this part of our spiritual practice and inspiration and connection and meditation, that it has always been a radical teaching. It's always been a radical idea, right? From the very beginning. I spent my childhood, I grew up in this philosophy, in this tradition, in religious science churches, from about 3 years old up. And my best friend was a Mormon, and I had other friends who had other practices and beliefs. And so I was very curious about how my philosophy or religious tradition, which I didn't, outside of our youth group, didn't know anybody else. Nobody had ever heard of it. Anytime I ever told anybody about it, they went, what? And then I would try to explain it in the simplest of terms, and I'd use things like oneness and God is all there is, and they'd look at me and they were even more confused, which I thought I just said two really simple things. That's not hard, that's not complicated to understand. God is all there is, oneness, like that. And they'd go, what? And they'd look at me like I just, spoke a different language, spoke Chinese or something. They just couldn't comprehend it. And so that simply drove me to curiosity about, well, what is it really that we believe? And why does it land like a foreign language on other ears when I describe it to somebody? So I would go to libraries and bookstores and various places where I could look up, and there would always be, I've told this story before, you probably know where this is going. There would always be two books. It'd be the Book of World Religions, or sometimes the Book of Western Religions of America, and the other book would be the Book of the Occult. And they were both like encyclopedia books where they would just have a listing of, all the things, right, and categorized and alphabetically. And so I'd get both of those books, if they had both of them, or just one of them, if that's what they had. There'd be different editions by different authors from different places. And so I was always curious to find a new one or an old one and sit down with it and immediately go to the index, and I'd look up Ernest Holmes, I'd look up religious science, I'd look up science of mind, I'd look up new thought, I'd even look up New Age, because sometimes we wouldn't be listed in all those other things, but they would mention us under New Age. I'd look up unity, all the different things, right? And I'd just see. The first test was, are we in there at all? Because sometimes the answer was no. And then if we were, what did they say? And it was very interesting. And a lot of times, almost the same paragraph was in both books. In the World Religions books, it would say the same thing about us as it said about us in the occult book. It would be the same description. And that description was, these people believe in oneness. Dangerous, heretical idea. Right? Radical. They downplay sin and redemption and the whole concept of salvation through Christ. They've just thrown it out the window. They've replaced God with an impersonal mind or law. They've turned prayer into a self-centered tool for material gain. I'd read the critics in the early 1900s who wrote about New Thought critically. Not critically as in like scholarly, but critically as in this is dangerous, you need to watch out kind of way. Theologians like Gresham Machen, a fundamentalist theologian who argued that New Thought and Christian Science were dangerous departures from Orthodox Christianity. People that I later came to admire, people like Walter Rauschenbusch, the leader of the social gospel movement, criticized New Thought for its focus on individual prosperity rather than addressing systemic injustices. Other people that I admired, like George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, he criticized New Thought as a self-indulgent philosophy for the privileged, ignoring its social responsibilities. As early as early 1900s, authors were writing about this movement, warning people that it encouraged magical thinking. It promoted the illusion of control, leading people to believe that they could think their way out of real-life problems. And you know what? They would be right, save one thing. Let me say that again. They all would be right, save one thing. We believe in the principle of oneness. And that makes us a very dangerous thing. Ernest Holmes, in this thing called You, he said, we are all some part of the universal order. This union, however, does not mean sameness. For while unity requires conformity to principles, unity never means uniformity. Every blade of grass, every crystal, every drop of water, like every individual, is a little different from any other one of its species. He goes on to say, humanity is made up of innumerable individuals, no two alike, and yet society is a composite whole moving gradually towards some ultimate goal. What could this goal be? Watch this. Other than that everyone, while remaining individual, shall find a more complete expression in and among all other individuals. Woo! We're going to have to break it down because you didn't catch that. I know you didn't catch it, but that's okay. I wrote in this month's magazine for Science of Mind, Radical Oneness, in my column, Philosophy in Action, in which I said this: the real work of oneness goes beyond singing, chanting, and praying affirmatively. It extends to befriending those whom we consider to be the other. Our spiritual principles teach us that we are inextricably linked to one another, that we are all unique expressions of this one divine source, and as such, the human family expresses an unlimited and a unique array of opinions, preferences, and forms of identity. Our oneness does not mean sameness. Rather, our oneness implies diversity and therefore calls us to celebrate and respect and lift up our uniqueness as an act of our affirming our oneness in spirit. In other words, it is because that we are one in spirit that I honor and celebrate the unique expression that you are. While we may have different opinions, values, and ideas, we are not different, only different expressions of the same spirit. Holmes says, what could this goal be other than that everyone, while remaining individual, shall find a more complete expression in and among all other individuals? Community, belonging, connection. That you fulfill the completeness of your expression through your interaction with others. And that you are not complete until you do so. Right? Dr. King said it this way. I forgot to put this one in the slides, but he says, I cannot become what I ought to become unless you become what you ought to become. You cannot become what you ought to become unless I become what I ought to become. We are bound together in a single garment of destiny. And so this New Thought philosophy, at the heart of it is this radical principle called oneness. The whole premise of our idea that we can heal our bodies comes from the idea that we are connected to something bigger than ourselves, and that we are one with that thing, and that thing is whole, perfect, and complete, and therefore the possibility of our healing comes through our alignment with it. The idea that all existence is interconnected and arises from a single divine consciousness. This is not merely a comforting spiritual belief. It's a radical and transformative worldview with profound implications, not just for our health and well-being, but for society, for our personal identity, for justice, for power structures, for the whole way in which we are set up to be connected in and among all other individuals. Oneness is relational. It finds itself in completion in relationship to everyone else and everything else. And so we ought to look at what I have often called, and in my book, Freedom from Discord, called the radical implication of our teachings. What is the radical implication of this idea of oneness? What is the radical implication of this interconnection that we have? What does it say to the world in which we are in the noise, in the chaos that we seem to be surrounded by? What does it say to be anchored in our faith? To tune out some of that and get tuned in to the depth of our faith, to the depth of our oneness, to the depth of our wholeness, to the depth of prayer and spiritual practice and meditation, such that not so that we can inoculate ourselves from the world, but so that we can have the capacity to handle whatever comes at us. What's the radical implication of doing that? In the atmosphere that we find ourselves, what we begin to understand is that oneness is not afraid. Oneness, because oneness is not sameness, oneness doesn't need to cancel anything or anyone. Oneness is not afraid of diversity. Oneness understands that it is expressed in, through, and as the diverse expressions of creation. Oneness is diversity, because if there's only one, and that one is unlimited and limitless, then there ought to be a diverse way in which that one can show itself. So diversity is the proof that there's only one. You can't cancel diversity. Diversity is the proof that there's one. You see, anytime you got somebody saying, well, we need to just remove all identity forms and all ways of honoring all of these different things because we just need to get back to simple and one and da-da-da-da-da, they don't understand oneness. They understand fear. Oneness doesn't need to cancel anything. Oneness is not afraid of the transgender community. This morning, our spiritual leader for Centers for Spiritual Living posted this statement. I won't read all of it. It's long, but I will share it so that you can have it in our newsletter. She said, Reverend Dr. Sonny Cottrell Smith says, at Centers for Spiritual Living, we stand firm in the truth that all people are divine expressions of spirit, whole and perfect in their authenticity. We believe in the inherent dignity, worth, and sacredness of every individual. We affirm the right of all people to live their most authentic lives in peace. We're appalled at the ongoing war on transgender people, an attack on the fundamental spiritual truth that each person is a unique and unrepeatable manifestation of the divine. Any attempt to deny, oppress, or erase that sacred identity of another is an act of fear, not love. And as students of the science of mind, we know that love is the only power, and we will not stand idly by while our siblings in spirit are harmed. Right? Because oneness is not afraid. Oneness is not afraid of otherness. Oneness is not afraid of diversity. Oneness is not alien to anything. And so there are four, I want to share with you four. There's more than four, and I'm going to write about them, but for today I chose 4 ways in which oneness is radically transformative for the world in which we live in. And it always has been, but is especially so today. The first one is this: oneness redefines individual identity. Ernest Holmes, in How to Use the Science of Mind, I think I have this one, yes, he says, so oneness redefines individual identity. He says, when we say that there is one cause back of all manifest form, one intelligence back of all consciousness, and one spirit within all people, we are not denying the reality of created forms or individual experiences. We are affirming the unity of all life, a unity which includes all variety. Unity passes into variety and multiplicity without division. Each and every creation, life brings its whole nature to bear upon that individual expression. And so, in the Western idea of thought, the individual is seen as separate, self-contained, self-sufficient. We grow up with this idea that we have to be a self-made person, a self-made man, a self-made woman, a self-made person in the world, that we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and all of these ideas around capitalism and success and all of these things that are tied into those things, which, by the way, New Thought literature and teaching has been used to promote a lot of that stuff over the years, for better or for worse. But the implication of a radical oneness is that you are not just you. You are the whole expressing as you. You are not just you. You are the whole. You are the presence of God expressing as you. Your individual self really doesn't exist, because your individual self is just the unique expression of the one. So that which you call you is it. Are you catching that? You are not separate. You are simply a unique expression of the one thing that's trying to happen here. And because that one thing is all that there is, and that one thing is infinite, it has an infinite way of showing itself, and that's called you. And of course, nobody existed like you before, because God wouldn't know itself completely unless you existed. And so, of course, you're divine. And of course you're whole, perfect, and complete. And of course you're worthy of love and all of the things, right? Because your true identity is universal, not personal. The radical conclusion of this, it dissolves the idea of rugged individualism and causes us to rethink personal responsibility and community and interdependence. It calls for a radical shift in how we relate to one another, not as competitors or outsiders, but as extensions of the one divine life. In other words, oneness is not insecure, because oneness knows itself through belonging. It's not insecure. It knows that I belong to you, you belong to me, we belong to each other. The second way, the oneness is a radical shift in how we show up in the world today, is that oneness abolishes the fear-based view of God. Traditional religious structures often portray God as separate from humanity, as being out there, as a being that judges and rewards and punishes. And New Thought and the idea of oneness, we completely dismantle this framework. And we're called radical heretics because of it. To say that God is not separate from us, but God is us. That there is no fall from grace, there is only the giving of divine nature. That sin is not an offense against external deities, but simply that there are error thinking and a failure to recognize our oneness, and that we can correct that in the blink of an eye, in the moment that we have a new thought. There's no need for external salvation because we're already divine. There's no need for fear-based religion or control because the divinity is already within us. Is somebody with me? Am I talking to myself here? I know it's hot. You should try it up here. This threatens the religious dogma and deepens the separation between God and humanity to maintain authority. We dismantle all of this. Oneness does not need to fear anything. Oneness doesn't need to fear the divinity of women or the God-given power that they have of dominion over their life and their bodies and their choices. We don't need to strip those things away from them. because oneness is not afraid. 3, oneness undermines systems of oppression. If all people, all beings, are an existent and expression of the same divine consciousness, then the systems that divide and exploit and oppress others are fundamentally manifestations of what we call error thinking, manifestations of fear, otherness, and separateness. That those things are not powers in and of themselves, but manifestations of a consciousness rooted in fear and otherness that has gotten out of control. Thich Nhat Hanh says it this way. He says, when we free ourselves from the idea of separateness, we have compassion, we have understanding, and we have the energy to help. When we free ourselves from the idea of separateness, we have compassion, we have understanding, and we have the energy to help, to participate. And so the implication is that racism, sexism, classism, all forms of discrimination are illusions, are false constructs that fundamentally erode the idea that there is a unity of all life, that colonialism and imperialism collapse under the weight of oneness, that they're all based on the false idea of separation and superiority. The radical conclusion here is that a society based on oneness would dismantle hierarchies of power that benefit the few at the expense of the many. This is why New Thought can be a deeply subversive to dominant structures, because it challenges the foundations and beliefs that uphold those structures. That's why so many religious figures in the early 1900s were speaking out against it, because they saw the ways in which this idea of oneness and being close and intimate with God would fundamentally, by the way, they did the same thing to Jesus. It was the same thing, right? One more. Oneness shifts power away from external authorities. Oh, we need this one right now. That's why I put it at last today. Oneness shifts power away from external authorities. If divine consciousness is equally present in all beings, then there is no external authority that has a monopoly on truth, wisdom, and power. And this directly challenges things like religious institutions that claim exclusive access to God, governments that rule through hierarchy or division or authoritarian rule, or at least the illusions thereof, economic systems that benefit the few while exploiting the many. All of these things begin to collapse when we follow the radical implication of oneness. True spiritual power is eternal and internal, not external, meaning that people no longer need the mediator between themselves and the divine. The authority based on hierarchy begins to collapse. If all are divine, then no one is inherently superior to another. A decentralized patriarchy and a decentralized and participatory society begins to emerge because power is no longer concentrated in the hands of the few. This directly threatens religious institutions that thrive and government institutions that thrive on hierarchy and control. It's February 2nd. Carter G. Woodson, born in 1875, understood the kind of oneness that I'm telling you about today. He was a son of formerly enslaved people, worked on his family farm as a child in West Virginia and the coal mines as a teen, and he never got the chance for formal education until he was a young man. Went to high school at age 20, finished in 2 years, went on to get his bachelor's degree from Barrera College in Kentucky, working globally after that, earning a master's degree from the University of Chicago and then a PhD from Harvard, and becoming only the second black person to do so after W.E.B. Du Bois. And while Woodson was at the university at Harvard, actually, he encountered a professor that asserted and challenged Woodson on the idea that black people had any history at all. And they challenged Woodson. Essentially, he said, prove it. Well, he didn't know that Carter Woodson had been collecting data his entire life through what his family taught him, through what he learned in the coal mines, through what he learned in school. And so he took that challenge and he went to work and he started gathering the information and he started collecting the stories and identifying who was connected to what and who invented what and all of the history and ways in which his people, his culture, his identity had contributed not only to society, but to present-day society, but to the world. But he had a challenge. The scholar, when he tried to present his research and findings, he was banned from academic conferences, such as the American Historical Association, of which he was a member. He said, you can't come in. You can't present your findings. And so he went on to found his own societies and institutions of preserving. He realized in order to tell this story, he was going to have his own society to preserve the information. And that is the space from which we get what was originally Negro History Week and what eventually became Black History Month. It was an audacious belief in oneness. It was an audacious belief that upset the powers of hierarchy. It was an audacious belief that said, there is power within me and I know what it is, and the authority, the external authorities and institutions can't tell me otherwise. When we have that deep idea of who and whose we are, that we belong to the universe in which we live, and there is divinity within us, then nothing externally can tell us otherwise. We need to remember that message right now, because there's plenty of places and spaces that are trying to tell us otherwise right now, that are trying to make the idea of oneness and diversity and inclusion and equity as dangerous thoughts, trying to tell us that we are radical, but we remember what radical really means. That a radical oneness means we dismantle injustice because it is an illusion of separation. That we restructure society because hierarchies are false and built on false premises of fear. That we transform consciousness because true power is within us. That is why oneness is not passive, it is audacious, it is rebellious, and it is revolutionary, and it always has been. In the atmosphere of fear and control and othering and chaos, some of us might have to get comfortable with being a little radical in our oneness. Or, as my Hispanic stepfather, some of you have met, who's usually watching online, so hi, Papa. Lifelong New Mexican, grown up his family for generations in that region of the country, their entire lives and the entire generation of their families, lifelong New Mexican, as he would say, we did not cross the border. The border crossed us. And so I use that as a metaphor to say we might have to be comfortable with the idea that maybe we didn't think of our theology or our spirituality as radical. Maybe we don't think that we crossed that border into a radical belief, but the border, you didn't cross the border crossed you. Where they put the goalposts crossed you. When they have introduced a House bill, when Christianity conjoined with empire and with Constantine back in 300, whatever it was, right? The border of what was radical didn't cross the message of Jesus. He didn't cross the border, it crossed him. And just this last week, when the House Republicans in the United States Congress introduced House Resolution 59 to condemn the sermon of the Bishop, Reverend Right Marianne Edgar, viewed at the National Cathedral, and 22 co-signers have already signed on to it, including 2, I'll let you look them up who they are, from here in Georgia. I don't want to even say their names. We didn't cross the border of radical, it crossed us. Because we know what happens when government authorities try to suppress or outlaw religious voices. We have books written about that. Some of them, they can't have those books in their schools. We know the names of those governments. Again, Dr. Sunny's letter that she sent out today. In alignment with our core teachings, we affirm a world that works for everyone. A world where all are free to be who they are and express their truth and thrive in safety and in joy. We call upon our spiritual community and all people of faith to stand in love, to rise in support, and to speak truth, and to act boldly in support of our transgender family. We speak a word of healing for any wounds caused by misunderstandings, rejection, or harm. We affirm that every transgender person is a perfect whole expression of the divine. Their identity is sacred, an unfolding of truth, beauty, and authenticity. There is nothing to fix, nothing to change, only the fullness of spirit revealing itself in infinite ways. And I would extend that to say to our immigrant brothers and sisters, to women, to the list is getting long of who we include that love and that care for, because we know that oneness is not passive, it's audacious and radical. It challenges the status quo. And if you think, Rev, you've really gone off the deep end, you've gotten just a little too radical with your message here, I remind you of a couple of things. One, I didn't put the title on the magazine this month, they did, and it says Radical Interconnection. Secondly, in Can We Talk to God by Ernest Holmes, he says, we would defeat the very purpose of life should we live in a continuous state. I don't know if I put this one up. I guess I didn't. Never mind. We'll go back. But listen, we would defeat the very purpose of life should we live in a continuous state of meditation or prayer, oblivious to the objective world. We would defeat the very purpose of life should we live in a continuous state of meditation and prayer, oblivious to the objective world. The practical values of spiritual perception remain latent until objectified. Any attempt to isolate oneself from the world of action is contrary to the order of the universe and therefore futile. In other words, our job is to project our radical oneness and to radiate our radical oneness, to be anchored in it, yes, to spend as much time in prayer and meditation, yes, as it takes so that we know that we know that we know the divine truth of who and what we are. Apply it to ourselves first, yes, put your own oxygen mask on first, yes, but then show up beaming that truth into a world that would say otherwise. We cannot move forward by giving toxic thinking free rent in our mind or in our society or our airwaves, by glossing over it with shallow prayers for unity and oneness. True oneness is not a retreat from the truth. It's a call and an act of solidarity. And solidarity is not just inconvenient, it's transformative. It may even get you in trouble, good trouble. To which I say, bring it on. The Spirit, and in the Spirit, and finally this, in the spirit of the old Dorothy Norwood song, some of you may know, Victory is Mine. You know, they also, Victory is Mine. I got up this morning, Victory is Mine. Right? And she says, and towards the reprise of it at the end, she says, I got up this morning, and you know what I said? Ain't nothing could happen to me today that me and the Lord can't handle. Victory is mine. And so it is. Oh, right. I got all up in my feelings about that. Will the practitioners please come forward? We're going to pray on this. Sometimes I need people to tell me what to do. We join in that spirit, in that energy, in that oneness. I invite everyone who's watching online, as we recall the box of things that we want to lay at the altar and those that were written on last week and any that might be added to during this time, either in our hearts or physically. All the things that are present that have disturbed our awareness or caused concern. Let us do what we know how to do best in this moment, and that is to turn to prayer. To know and to believe and to affirm and to declare that there is one power, one presence, one life that moves in, through, and as all life and all creation. This one is the only one that there is. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else is a manifestation of fear and separation. And so we bother it no mind in this particular moment because we know that there is a presence within us that knows that it knows that it knows, that it is connected to the infinite, that God and I are one, and one with God is a majority. It's all that you need. And into this space, we anchor and affirm our divine truth of love and wholeness, of safety and protection, of beauty, of justice, of a world that works for everyone. We're so anchored in that awareness that we begin to see it and feel it. The tonality, the color, the smell, the expression of it in our own very being. I can see, feel, and sense the way in which the one, which is the only one that there is expressing in, through, and as me in this moment. And because I know that so intimately, because I've spent time with it, I can begin to see it for the rest of humanity. I can begin to see it for the rest of the world. It's not just dreamy imaginations. It is anchoring in the divine truth of who and what we are, and then inviting that truth to express in the world. Oh, and there will be stuff that gets disturbed, because once a prayer is spoken, once the divine truth goes from our mind to our lips to our heart, and it is received by the law of mind, the law of mind must return to us the very vibration of our prayer. The law has no choice. It must manifest. When we plant a seed, it must bring forth the nature of that seed that is planted. We have been planting a seed called the world that works for everyone for decades, for years, for generations. Peace on earth as it is already within our hearts. And when we do that work and we set something into motion in the law, everything that is contrary to it must come to the surface to be reconciled with, to be examined in the light of truth, and to decide, do I really believe in duality? Do I really believe in suffering? Do I really believe in otherness? Or do I really believe in one power, one presence, one light that is moving in, through, and as me, and causing me to be brought to its manifestation, or causing it to be brought to me for the manifestation? And so I see that now happening collectively, globally, locally, internally. Everything that we've ever desired is at our doorstep. We've got to step through it. We've got to reconcile with the old ideas, the old things that have been put into motion for generations and generations of otherness and duality and hierarchy and isms of all types. Let us deal with them directly, soundly, calmly, anchored in the awareness that this truth is greater than anything else that appears. One life, one power, one presence. As me, as you, as us. What a radical, transformative idea. Act boldly, love fearlessly, move courageously in the spirit of that one, and watch as miracles happen. Thank you, God. I release this word. I know that it's already done. I see it, I feel it, I sense it, and I give thanks for it. Thank you, God. Oof. Thank you, God. And so it is. So we let it be. Peace and blessings.
Please stand as we sing together. Lift every voice and sing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring much, everyone. See you downstairs.